Aaron opened his eyes to a soft glow. The light above him was not from a lamp or the sun but from strange crystals fixed in the ceiling. His body felt heavy, as if he had been sleeping for many days. When he tried to move, he noticed thin bands of silver around his arms and chest. They were not chains but some kind of gentle restraints, holding him on a smooth bed that seemed alive with energy. At first, fear rushed through him. He remembered the crash. His ship had torn through an unknown sky, alarms screaming, metal breaking apart. He had fought to guide it down, but the last thing he recalled was fire and darkness. Now he was awake in a place far different from the wreckage he expected. A voice came, soft and careful, speaking words that felt almost human. "You are safe. Do not fear." Aaron turned his head and saw her. A tall figure stood near the bed, wrapped in long robes of pale blue. Her skin was faint silver, glowing faintly in the crystal light, and her eyes were wide and clear like pools of water. Her hair flowed behind her like strands of dark silk. She moved with grace, each step soundless. She placed a slender hand on a panel beside his bed. The silver bands around his arms loosened and slid away. "You are hurt but alive. Rest more," she said. Aaron blinked at her, his mind still hazy. He wanted to ask many questions: where he was, who she was, what had happened to his ship, but instead he heard his own voice say something foolish. "Thanks, baby." He had said it without thought, just a habit from his human humor. Back home, he often used the word to lighten tense moments. But here, in this strange palace of crystal and silence, the word hung in the air like a stone dropped into still water. The nurse tilted her head. For a moment, Aaron worried she was offended. Then she laughed, soft and musical, like the ringing of glass bells. She lowered her eyes, then lifted them again, shining with a strange warmth. "Husband," she whispered. Aaron blinked fast. "Wait, what?" "No, no. That was a joke." But she only smiled kindly. "You call me so. It means bond. It means more than patient and healer. It means chosen." Aaron pushed himself up, his body aching but his mind now racing. The bed shifted under him as if it understood his movement. He stared at the nurse, searching her face for any sign that she was teasing him. But she looked serious, calm, as if what she said was a fact. "You misunderstood," Aaron said, raising his hands. "On my world, it's just a word. It doesn't mean marriage or promise. It's just playful." She seemed to think about that, her long fingers touching the edge of the bed. "On my world, such words are never light. If spoken, they carry heart. Perhaps your world is different. But I will remember what you said." Aaron groaned softly and rubbed his forehead. He could not believe this. Of all the things to say, he had chosen the one word that might tie him to a completely different culture. "What's your name?" he asked, hoping to change the subject. "Myra," she replied. Her voice was clear, and she spoke his language with care, though her accent gave each word a gentle rhythm. "I serve in the palace of the queen. I am healer and watcher. You fell from the sky, and she commanded that you be saved." Aaron's eyes widened. "The queen?" Myra nodded. "Her will is law. You live because she chose so. But it was my hands that cared for you." She placed a hand lightly on her chest. "Now, you are under my watch. That is bond." Aaron sat back, trying to calm his thoughts. The crash had thrown him into an unknown world, and now a nurse believed he had claimed her as a wife with one careless word. His heart pounded. He was grateful to be alive, but he also feared what this misunderstanding could grow into. Still, Myra's presence was not frightening. She was gentle, her laughter soft, her eyes filled with patience. Even if she misunderstood him, she seemed to mean no harm. Aaron tried to stand. The bed adjusted to help him, and Myra stepped forward, placing a steady hand on his arm. Her touch was cool and calming. "You must not rush," she said. "Your bones are mended, but your strength is not full. Walk slowly." Aaron leaned on her and looked around. The room was not like any sickbay he had seen. The walls curved upward, smooth and shining, like the inside of a pearl. Crystals pulsed faintly with light, and the air smelled clean and sweet, like rain after a storm. As they walked toward an archway, Aaron asked, "Where exactly am I?" "You are in the Palace of Crystal Veins," Myra said. "It is the heart of our world, the place where the Queen rules. Few outsiders ever see it. You are the first of your kind here." Aaron's steps slowed. "The first human?" She nodded. "Yes. A rare guest. Or perhaps more than guest." She glanced at him with a quiet smile, and again Aaron felt the weight of her earlier words, husband. He sighed. "Myra, really, I didn't mean it that way. I don't want you to get in trouble because of something I said." Myra's expression did not change. "There is no trouble. Words shape paths. Maybe this path was waiting. You will see." They stepped out of the chamber into a long corridor filled with light. Aliens passed by, their forms tall and graceful like Myra, some carrying scrolls, others with weapons of silver. Their eyes turned toward Aaron, filled with curiosity. Some whispered to one another, their voices low but sharp. Aaron felt heat rising in his face. He knew rumors were already starting. He had been here less than an hour, and already he was seen as something strange, maybe even dangerous. Beside him, Myra walked calmly, her hand steady on his arm. She did not seem troubled by the stairs. If anything, she seemed proud to guide him. Aaron took a deep breath. He had no idea what this new world would bring. He only knew one thing for certain: his careless joke had changed everything. And somewhere in the grand halls of this alien palace, the Queen herself would soon hear of the human who had called her nurse baby. Aaron walked slowly beside Myra, each step heavy but steady. His body still ached, yet the healing bed had done its work well enough. The corridor stretched far ahead, glowing softly with crystal veins that ran through the walls like living streams of light. Every corner of this place seemed alive, not built by tools alone but shaped by something deeper, perhaps grown over centuries. Myra's hand remained firm on his arm, guiding him as though he belonged here. Aaron felt uneasy, not only from the strange looks others gave him but also from Myra's calm acceptance of the word he had spoken. "Husband." It echoed in his mind like a bell he could not silence. He cleared his throat. "Myra, you said this is the Palace of Crystal Veins. What is it exactly?" "Some kind of government center." She looked at him, her clear eyes reflecting the glow of the walls. "It is more. It is heart, memory, and strength. The Queen rules here, but it is also where healers work, where wisdom is kept, and where the people bring their voices. You are in the center of all things." Aaron tried to process that. Back on Earth, power was often divided: leaders in one place, healers in another, soldiers in their own bases. Here, everything seemed bound together. It felt strange, but also strangely complete. As they passed through the corridor, Aaron noticed wide archways opening into great halls. In one, alien figures studied glowing orbs that floated above stone tables. In another, children of Myra's people played, their laughter echoing like wind chimes. Everywhere he looked, the palace was alive with movement, yet no place felt rushed. The people moved with a steady rhythm, like a song carried through the halls. "Why did the queen choose to save me?" Aaron asked finally. Myra's steps slowed. She seemed to weigh her answer carefully. "You fell from the sky. None of your kind has walked here before. The queen believes every life carries meaning. She wished to see what meaning yours might hold." Aaron frowned. "So I'm an experiment? A curiosity?" "Not experiment," Myra said softly. "Guest. And perhaps more than guest." She gave him that same calm smile again, the one that made his chest tighten with unease. Aaron shook his head. Back home, if a stranger dropped out of the sky, people would be afraid, not welcoming. Myra tilted her head. "Then perhaps your world fears too much. Here, we seek to learn. Even in danger, knowledge is strength." They reached a wide balcony, and Aaron's breath caught. Beyond the palace stretched a city unlike anything he had seen. Towers of crystal rose into the sky, glowing faintly in colors that shifted with the light. Bridges arched between them, carrying streams of people who moved gracefully, as though every step was part of a dance. The sky itself shimmered with two suns, one pale and one golden, casting twin shadows across the city. Aaron gripped the balcony rail, stunned. This is incredible." Myra stood beside him, watching his reaction with quiet satisfaction. "It is home. Now, you see why we call it heart of the world." For a long moment, Aaron forgot his worries. He simply stared at the beauty before him, the harmony of a city that seemed to breathe with life. But then the whispers reached his ears again. Behind them, two attendants spoke in low voices, their eyes fixed on him. "Is it true? The healer claims the Skyfallen called her with bond words." "Yes. Already she names him husband." "A human? Impossible. The council will not allow it." Aaron turned away quickly, his chest tightening. Myra, however, stood calm, as though she had not heard or as though such talk carried no weight. "Myra," Aaron said, lowering his voice. "People are already speaking about us. This is dangerous for you. Maybe you should tell them the truth that I was only joking." But Myra shook her head gently. "The truth is not so simple. You spoke, and the word carries. Even if you say it was joke, others may not believe. The bond is seed. Once spoken, it grows." Aaron ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. "Back on Earth, we joke all the time. Words are just sounds. They don't have to mean forever." Her gaze was steady, unshaken. "On my world, every sound shapes forever." Aaron fell silent. He could see she would not change her view. And deep down, he wondered if perhaps she did not want to. They left the balcony and entered a garden inside the palace. Strange trees with silver leaves spread their branches, and glowing flowers opened as they walked by. Small creatures with wings like glass drifted through the air, leaving trails of light. The garden was quiet, peaceful, a place for healing and thought. Myra guided him to a bench carved from smooth stone. She gestured for him to sit. "You are not ready to walk long," she said. "Here you rest. I will bring water." Aaron sat heavily, his legs grateful for the pause. He watched her move through the garden, her robes flowing, her steps graceful. She looked like she belonged to this place in a way he never could. And yet, she had chosen to tie herself to him, whether by mistake or belief. When she returned, she handed him a cup of cool, sweet water. As he drank, she sat beside him. For a moment, silence hung between them, broken only by the soft hum of the glowing flowers. "Tell me of your world," she said at last. "What is Earth like?" Aaron thought for a moment. "It's beautiful in parts. Blue oceans, green forests, high mountains. But it's also divided. People argue, fight, sometimes even go to war. We have great machines, but sometimes we forget to live in peace with each other." Myra listened carefully, her eyes never leaving his face. "Then perhaps it is gift you came here. You may see new path. And we may see through your eyes, too." Aaron gave a weak laugh. "Or maybe I just crashed by mistake." "Nothing is mistake," Myra said. "Every step has reason." Her words carried such quiet certainty that Aaron could not answer. He looked at her, at the calm strength in her eyes, and felt a strange pull in his chest. He had only just met her, yet she spoke to him as though fate had already tied their paths together. But as peaceful as the garden was, Aaron could not shake the feeling that something heavier was building. The whispers, the curious stares, the way Myra's simple laugh had already shifted his place in this world, it was all moving too quickly. Somewhere deep inside the palace, the queen surely already knew of him. And soon, he feared, she would call him to answer for words he had never meant to carry such weight. The palace garden had been calm, but once Myra led Aaron back inside, the air felt heavier. The halls were wide and shining, yet every step seemed to draw more eyes. Servants paused in their duties to look at him. Guards in silver armor shifted their stance as he passed. The whispers were no longer faint. They rippled behind him, clear enough for him to catch pieces. "The Skyfallen speaks bond words. The healer claims him. A human as husband. The council will not allow such a thing." Aaron clenched his jaw. He wanted to shout that it was all a mistake, that he had only been joking. But Myra walked with steady steps beside him, unbothered. Her calmness felt like a shield, yet it also made him uneasy. "Myra," he said in a low voice, "this is not good. Everyone is talking." "Yes," she replied simply. "Yes." Aaron blinked. "That's all you have to say?" "Words spread as fire spreads. But fire also warms. It depends how it is used." She looked at him gently. "Do not fear whispers. They cannot cut you." Aaron groaned softly. "Maybe not, but they can make enemies. I don't want trouble for you." She tilted her head. "Trouble only comes if hearts are weak. Mine is not weak." They continued through the hall until they reached a chamber that opened into a wide circle. The floor was smooth crystal, polished like a mirror. Above, a dome of light glowed as though the sun itself lived within the palace. Figures stood around the edge of the circle, council members, their robes dark and heavy with woven silver. Their faces were serious, their eyes sharp. At the center, a guard in tall armor stepped forward and spoke. "Human. The queen has not yet called you, but the council hears of whispers. You must know, this place is bound by law. Bonds of heart are not made lightly. If you speak such words, you must carry them." Aaron froze. His heart hammered in his chest. "I didn't mean it like that. On my world, words can be playful. They don't always mean forever." The council members murmured among themselves. "One, a tall man with a narrow face, spoke louder. Then your world is careless. Here, words shape lives. Do you say the healer lies when she calls you husband? Aaron turned to Myra. She stood calm, her face serene. I do not lie, she said. He spoke. I heard. That is enough. The murmur grew louder. Some nodded as though her words proved the bond was true. Others frowned, anger flashing in their eyes. Aaron raised his hands. Listen, I respect your ways, but you have to understand mine. I was not making a promise. I was only trying to lighten the moment. I don't want to dishonor your people or Myra. But this is a mistake. Silence filled the chamber. Then the tall counselor spoke again. Mistake or not, the queen must decide. Until then, you remain under guard. No step outside the palace. No word outside the healer's care. Aaron felt the walls closing in. He wanted to protest, but Myra placed a gentle hand on his arm. Her touch silenced him more than their threats. She whispered, do not fight here. Wait for the queen. The guards stepped closer, forming a circle. Aaron swallowed his anger and nodded. He could not win this argument now. The council dispersed, leaving only guards to escort him and Myra back through the halls. As they walked, Aaron felt the weight of their decision pressing on him. Until the queen spoke, he was trapped. They returned to Myra's healing chamber. The bed still glowed softly, waiting for him. Aaron sat heavily on its edge, his hands covering his face. This is insane, he muttered. One stupid word and now I'm trapped in a palace, waiting for some queen to judge me. Myra stood near him, calm as ever. Not trapped. Protected. The queen will see truth. Aaron dropped his hands and stared at her. Do you really believe this? Do you really think I'm your husband because of one word? Her eyes softened. On your world, perhaps not. On mine, yes. And in my heart, yes. Aaron's breath caught. She spoke with such quiet certainty that he could not argue. He wanted to deny it, to push the idea away, but he could not ignore the warmth in her eyes. She truly believed it? Before he could reply, a soft chime echoed through the chamber. A guard entered, bowing slightly. The queen has learned of the whispers. She calls the human to her court. He must come at once. Aaron's stomach tightened. He stood, legs unsteady, and looked at Myra. She placed her hand over his. Do not fear, she said. The queen is wise. She will see beyond words. He wished he could believe that. But as the guard led them through the palace once more, the stares of the people followed, heavier than before. Some looked at him with curiosity, others with clear disapproval. At last they reached the great hall of the queen. The doors towered above them, carved with patterns of stars and flowing rivers. Guards pushed them open, and a blinding light spilled through. Aaron's breath caught. Inside, the hall stretched wider than any cathedral he had ever seen. The ceiling was high and glowing, filled with shifting constellations. At the far end, on a throne carved from living crystal, sat the queen herself. She was taller than the others, her skin glowing like silver fire, her robes woven with threads of light. Her eyes, vast and ancient, fixed on Aaron the moment he entered. The hall fell silent, every figure bowing low, every sound fading away. The guard stepped forward. My queen. This is the human, Aaron. He is the one of the whispers. The queen's voice was clear and strong, filling the hall. Come forward, sky fallen. Speak truth. Did you call the healer with bond words? Aaron's heart pounded. Every eye in the hall was on him. Myra stood at his side, calm and steady. He took a deep breath. Yes, he admitted. But not as you think. On my world, those words are light. They do not bind. I never meant to dishonor your healer or your people. It was a mistake. The queen studied him in silence, her gaze deep and unreadable. Then she looked at Myra. And you? Do you accept his words as bond? Myra bowed her head. Yes, my queen. His voice reached me. I believe it true. The hall erupted with murmurs, louder than before. Aaron's chest tightened. The queen raised her hand, and silence returned. She leaned forward slightly, her eyes glowing brighter. Then the question is not only of words, but of fate. If the healer calls him husband, and he stands before us as the first of his kind, perhaps the stars themselves have spoken. Aaron's breath caught. He realized then that his careless joke had grown far beyond himself or Myra. It was now a matter of the queen, the council, and the entire palace. His life was no longer his own. The throne room was silent after the queen's words. Her presence filled the great hall like the weight of a mountain and the calm of the sea. Even the glowing constellations on the ceiling seemed to pause, as though listening to her judgment. Aaron felt every eye on him. He had stood before leaders on earth before, captains, commanders, people with authority. None of them had ever made him feel so small. The queen's gaze was not cruel, yet it pierced him as if she saw more than his body, as if she looked directly into the pieces of his soul. He forced himself to stand tall. Your Majesty, I respect your people and your laws. But I must say again, I never meant to bind myself with words. Where I come from, we use such speech lightly. It was a joke, not a promise. The queen's expression did not change. Her silver eyes glowed with thought. Your world treats words as dust on the wind. Ours treats them as stone. The healer says your word is bond. Do you call her untrue? Aaron's heart pounded. He glanced at Myra. She stood with her head bowed, calm as always, yet her hands were folded tightly before her. She believed in him, and she believed in the bond. Denying her would shame her in front of her people. But claiming her openly would bind him to a future he had never imagined. I do not call her untrue, Aaron said carefully. She speaks what she feels. But my meaning was different. I did not intend to promise her marriage. The hall filled with murmurs again. Some voices carried disapproval, others curiosity. The queen raised her hand and silence returned. You are the first of your kind to stand before me, she said. Perhaps your ways are strange. But fate does not always follow intention. Sometimes the stars choose without asking. Perhaps this bond was written before either of you spoke. Aaron frowned. With respect, I don't believe in fate deciding my life. I make my own choices. At this, the queen leaned back slightly, her eyes narrowing with interest. Bold words, human. Few in this hall would dare say such before me. Aaron felt a chill run through him but did not step back. I survived a crash in the sky. I woke in a place I never knew. If I don't make my own choices, then I am no different from a leaf blown by the wind. I have to hold to what I believe. For the first time, the queen's lips curved slightly, almost a smile. You speak with fire. That fire may serve you well. Or it may burn all around you. Myra stepped forward then, bowing deeply. My queen, if I may speak. The human has lived only hours among us. He does not yet understand the weight of our bonds. But I believe his heart is true. He may not know what he promised, yet I feel the bond still. If he remains, time will show if the stars meant this path. The queen studied Myra with a gaze softer than before. You are healer, Myra. You see truths others do not. If you call him husband, then it is not for me to tear the bond without reason. A counselor stepped from the shadows. It was the tall one Aaron had seen earlier, with a narrow face and eyes like steel. He bowed, but his voice carried sharpness. My queen, forgive my boldness. This human is unknown. His words may charm, but we cannot trust him. To allow a bond between healer and outsider may weaken our ways. The people will question. The queen turned her gaze to him. Do you doubt my judgment? The counselor bowed deeper, though his tone stayed firm. Never, my queen. But I serve to guard our laws. If the bond is to be honored, then let the human prove his worth. Let him show his strength not only in words but in deed. Murmurs of agreement filled the hall. Aaron felt a surge of unease. And if I fail? He asked. The counselor's lips curved slightly. Then the bond is broken. The healer is freed. And the human returns to the sky as nothing. Myra's head snapped up, her eyes flashing with rare anger. He has only just healed. To test him so soon is cruel. The queen lifted her hand and silence fell again. She looked from the counselor to Aaron, her expression unreadable. Perhaps a test is wise. Yet it must be fair. No trial of war or pain, but a trial of heart. The human will be given a chance to prove what lives within him. Aaron swallowed hard. He had no idea what a trial of heart meant in this world. But the queen's gaze left no room for refusal. I accept, he said finally. His voice was steady, though inside he burned with doubt. The queen inclined her head. Then so it shall be. Tomorrow, at the rising of the twin suns, you will face the trial. Until then, you remain in the healer's care. Your fate will be decided not by words alone, but by the path you walk. With that, she rose from her throne. The hall bowed low as she turned and left through a door of light. The constellations above shifted again, stars moving into new patterns as though marking the moment. When she was gone, the hall began to empty. Some looked at Aaron with suspicion, others with quiet interest. The counselor gave him a cold glance before departing, his expression sharp as a blade. At last, only the guards, Myra and Aaron remained. Myra touched his arm gently. You spoke with courage. The queen saw it. But the trial will be dangerous. Aaron sighed. I don't even know what the trial is. Neither do I, Myra admitted. But trials of heart are never simple. They are not about strength of body alone. They test the spirit, the will, the truth inside you. Aaron rubbed his forehead. Great. Just what I needed after surviving a crash. Myra smiled softly, though her eyes still held worry. You will not face it alone. I will guide you as much as I can. Aaron looked at her. Her belief in him was unshaken, even though he had done nothing to earn it. He wondered if perhaps that was why she had called him husband in the first place. Not because of a single word, but because she saw something in him he could not yet see in himself. He drew a deep breath. All right then. If they want me to prove myself, I'll do it. But not just for me. He looked at her firmly. For you too. Her eyes widened slightly, then softened with warmth. She bowed her head. Then we walk this path together. That night, as Aaron rested again in the healer's chamber, he could not sleep easily. The whispers of the palace echoed in his mind. The queen's words weighed heavy on him. And the thought of the trial of heart filled him with both fear and determination. He had come to this world by accident, a crash from the sky. Yet now, fate or choice was pulling him into something far greater. Tomorrow, at the rising of the twin suns, his path would be tested. And he could not turn back. The night passed slowly for Aaron. He lay awake on the healing bed, staring at the crystal ceiling above him. His body was strong enough to move, but his mind was restless. Tomorrow he would face a trial he did not understand, before a queen and a council that doubted him. He kept thinking about Myra, about the way she had spoken with certainty, about how she believed in a bond that had started from a single careless word. When he finally drifted into uneasy sleep, dreams came. He saw fire in the skies, shadows descending on the palace, voices calling for war. He woke with a start, his chest tight, the glow of dawn already spreading through the chamber. The twin suns were rising. Myra entered quietly, carrying a robe of soft cloth. The suns climb. It is time to prepare, she said. Aaron rubbed his face. I don't even know what I'm preparing for. She set the robe beside him. A trial of heart is not about knowing. It is about revealing. The queen will see your truth. Before he could answer, a sudden sound shook the chamber. A deep rumble echoed through the palace walls, followed by a sharp horn that carried far. Myra froze, her eyes wide. That is not for the trial, she whispered. That is alarm. Another horn followed, louder, urgent. The crystal walls pulsed faintly as if the palace itself was warning its people. Aaron stood quickly. What's happening? Myra moved to the balcony and looked out. Aaron joined her and his breath caught. The skies above the shining city were darkening. Shapes moved against the twin suns' ships, large and jagged, descending in formation. Their hulls gleamed black like metal forged in fire. As they drew closer, flashes of light burst from them, streaks of energy tearing across the sky. The Vorin, Myra said, her voice low. Enemies of the queen. They seek to claim the palace. Aaron's chest tightened. And they picked today of all days. Guards rushed through the halls below, their armor shining, their weapons ready. The sound of commands echoed, and the city's towers began to glow brighter, drawing power. The air was alive with tension. Myra turned to him. This changes everything. The queen will not hold trial now. The trial is here, in this battle. Aaron nodded slowly. He had faced danger before, though never on this scale. He thought of the crash, the fire, the survival instinct that had carried him through. Now that same instinct rose again. What do you need me to do? He asked. Myra placed a hand on his chest. You are still healing. Do not throw yourself into blades. But your mind is sharp. You know war in ways we do not. Help guide. Help us see. Aaron's thoughts raced. He had trained in strategy back on Earth, studied battles of history, learned how smaller forces could resist larger ones with clever defense. He looked at the palace and the city beyond the towers, the bridges, the glowing crystals that carried energy. All right, he said. Take me to whoever commands the defense. I'll give them what I know. Myra nodded and led him quickly through the halls. The palace was no longer calm. Servants hurried with supplies, children were guided to hidden chambers, guards formed into units. Everywhere, eyes turned to the skies where the dark ships drew closer. They reached the war chamber, a wide hall where commanders gathered around a great table of light. Holographic images of the city and the enemy fleet floated above it, shifting as scouts reported. The queen herself stood at the head of the table, her silver robes glowing brighter than ever. She turned as Aaron entered. Human. Fate moves faster than we expected. Do you still claim you make your own choices? Then make them now. Aaron stepped forward, his fear pushed aside by urgency. He studied the floating map. The enemy fleet was larger, their ships heavy with weapons. The city had strong defenses but was open in places where bridges and towers spread wide. They'll strike hard and fast, Aaron said. They want to break your spirit before you can resist. You can't meet them in the open sky. You'll lose too much. You need to pull them into the city, make them fight where their numbers mean less. The commanders exchanged uneasy looks. One spoke. To allow them into the city is to invite ruin. Aaron shook his head. No. You use the city's design against them. Your bridges are narrow. Your towers are tall. Force their ships to break formation. Use the crystals to blind their sensors. Fight them piece by piece, not all at once. Myra stood beside him, her voice calm but firm. He speaks with knowledge. His world has fought many wars. Trust him. The queen studied Aaron in silence. Then she nodded once. Very well. We will fight as he guides. If he speaks true, the palace will stand. If not, the bond between healer and human ends with his failure. Aaron felt the weight of her words but stood firm. Then I won't fail. The battle began quickly. The enemy ships roared closer, energy blasts striking against the city's shields. Towers shook, bridges cracked, but the defenses held for the moment. Under Aaron's guidance, the commanders ordered the shields to bend and shift, creating gaps that lured the attackers inward. The Voron ships fell for the trap. They surged through the openings, chasing what looked like weakness. But once inside, their numbers worked against them. The narrow bridges forced them to split, and hidden crystal cannons fired from above. Aaron shouted instructions, pointing to the holographic map. Cut them off here. Collapse that bridge after they cross. Use the towers to pin them from both sides. The Queen's forces moved with precision, their weapons glowing, their discipline strong. For every ship that struck the city, 2 more fell to the traps. The skies blazed with light, thunder echoing across the palace. Myra worked beside Aaron, carrying orders, tending to the wounded who were brought in. Her hands glowed with healing energy, yet her eyes never left Aaron for long. She moved with trust, certain that his guidance would save them. Still, the battle was fierce. One of the larger enemy ships broke through and fired directly at the palace walls. The chamber shook, shards of crystal falling. Guards rushed to brace the defenses. Aaron felt the ground tremble beneath his feet. They'll try to strike the heart, he said quickly. They want to take the queen herself. We have to draw them away. He pointed at the map, tracing a path. Open a false gap here. Make them think they can reach the throne. Then close it behind them. Trap them between 2 towers. Hit them from above. The queen listened and gave the order. Moments later, the plan unfolded. The Voron ship surged toward the throne chamber, only to find itself caught in a deadly cage of fire. Crystal cannons rained down, tearing through its hull until it exploded in a storm of light. The hall shook with the force, but cheers rose from the defenders. The queen turned to Aaron, her expression unreadable yet steady. "You fight not only with body but with mind," she said. "Perhaps the stars knew of this when they brought you here." Aaron wiped sweat from his brow. "Maybe. Or maybe I just refuse to let anyone call me useless." The battle raged on, but the tide had turned. With every move, Aaron and Myra worked together, her healing and his strategy weaving into one. The defenders held strong, the enemy fleet beginning to falter. And as the twin suns rose higher, casting light across the palace, Aaron realized something. This was his trial. Not a test set by ceremony, but a test set by fate itself. His choices here would decide not only his future but the bond that Myra claimed and the queen now watched closely. The sky above the palace burned with fire. Shattered pieces of enemy ships fell like rain, glowing as they plunged into the distant fields. Yet the war was far from finished. The Voron fleet pressed harder, their fury rising as they saw their losses grow. The palace walls shook with every strike, and the defenders grew weary though their hearts refused to break. Aaron stood beside the queen's war table, sweat running down his face. His voice carried as he gave sharp instructions. "Pull the left flank back. Let them chase. Close the bridge once their ships cross. Keep their force divided." Commanders relayed his orders. Outside, the clash of thunder and energy weapons shook the city. Towers flared with crystal light, casting beams that sliced across the sky. Enemy ships burst in flames, but more pushed through. Myra moved quickly between the wounded and the commanders. Her hands glowed as she closed deep burns, healed broken bones, and calmed the fear in the soldiers' eyes. Even as she worked, her gaze often found Aaron. She could see the weight on his shoulders, yet she also saw the fire in his eyes. He was not just a survivor now. He was a fighter standing for her people. The palace floor rumbled again. One of the largest Voron ships pierced through the outer shield and landed its troops on the lower terraces. The guards shouted warnings. The battle was no longer only in the skies. The enemy had come to the ground. "We have to hold them here," Aaron said. "If they reach the throne chamber, the queen will be cornered." The queen raised her staff. "Then fight, human. Let your choices prove your worth." Aaron nodded and turned to Myra. "Stay near me. We're moving down." Myra hesitated. "You are not fully healed." He gave a quick smile. "Neither is your city. But we don't have the choice to wait." Together they rushed through the palace halls, following guards toward the terrace where the Voron had landed. The sound of metal boots and alien war cries echoed through the corridors. Aaron's heart pounded, but his mind was sharp. He remembered every war lesson, every story of soldiers outnumbered but unbroken. As they reached the terrace, the sight froze him for a moment. Dozens of Voron warriors stormed across the crystal floor, their armor black and jagged like shards of stone. Their weapons glowed with red energy, cutting through the palace defenses. The defenders fought bravely, but the enemy pressed forward with brutal force. Aaron grabbed a spear from a fallen guard. It was heavier than human weapons, but he steadied it in his hands. "Form a wall," he shouted. "Do not scatter. Make them come through you one by one." The guards quickly shifted, pulling into a tight formation across the terrace steps. The Voron slammed into them, but the line held. Spears clashed, shields rang, and cries filled the air. Myra moved behind the line, her hands glowing as she healed soldiers who staggered back with wounds. Aaron stayed near her, striking when the enemy pushed too close. His body ached, but every strike reminded him that survival was not enough anymore. He was fighting for something greater. One of the Vorin broke through, a towering warrior with a blade twice the size of Aaron's spear. The alien swung hard, knocking two guards to the ground. Aaron stepped forward without thinking, raising his weapon. The clash shook his arms, the force nearly breaking him, but he held firm. The Vorin snarled and struck again. Aaron barely dodged, the blade cutting the air by his face. Before the warrior could strike a third time, Myra called out. Her hand glowed brighter, releasing a burst of light into the warrior's eyes. The alien staggered back, blinded for a moment. Now, Aaron, she cried. Aaron lunged forward, driving his spear into a gap in the armor. The warrior roared and fell heavily, shaking the floor. The defenders cheered, and for a moment, the tide seemed to turn. But then, the sky darkened again. Another massive Vorin ship loomed above the terrace, its belly glowing with energy. Aaron's stomach sank. They're going to fire on us directly, he shouted. Everyone, fall back into the inner hall. The guards pulled back quickly, dragging the wounded with them. Myra stayed until the last moment, her hands on Aaron's arm, guiding him toward safety. Just as they crossed into the hall, a beam of red fire struck the terrace, shattering the crystal floor into rubble. Dust and heat filled the air. Aaron coughed, holding Myra close until the shaking stopped. When the dust cleared, the terrace was gone, but the hall still stood. The defenders regrouped, breathing hard, faces streaked with sweat and smoke. Myra looked at Aaron, her voice steady though her eyes showed fear. You are not a soldier of this world. Yet you fight as if you were born for it. Why? Aaron looked at her, his chest heaving. Because you believe in me. Because this is my fight now, too. For a moment, the chaos around them seemed to fade. Myra placed her hand against his, her eyes shining. Then whatever comes, we stand together. Before he could answer, another horn echoed through the palace. A messenger rushed in. The queen calls all forces to the throne chamber. The enemy breaks through the last gate. Aaron and Myra exchanged a look, their bond clear without words. Together, they followed the guards toward the heart of the palace. The throne chamber glowed with powerful energy, its great crystal spires humming as the queen stood tall. The Vorin stormed through the gates, their leader at the front, his armor heavier and darker than the rest. His eyes glowed red as he raised a massive blade. The defenders tightened their ranks. Aaron took his place beside Myra, spear in hand. He felt fear, but it no longer controlled him. This was the final stand, the place where his trial, his bond, and his fate would meet. The queen raised her staff, her voice carrying like thunder. This is our home. This is our heart. Let no shadow claim it. The chamber erupted in battle. Blades clashed, lights flared, the roar of war filled the air. Aaron and Myra fought side by side, every strike and every step keeping them alive. She healed him when he faltered, and he shielded her when danger pressed too close. Through the storm of the battle, one truth grew stronger in Aaron's heart. The bond that began as a joke was no joke at all. It was real, forged in fire and danger, sealed with trust. He no longer doubted Myra's words when she called him husband. And he no longer feared what tomorrow would bring. Because whatever came, they would face it together. The throne chamber was a storm of light and motion. The Vorin leader towered above the defenders, his massive blade swinging with deadly force. Sparks flew as it clashed with the queen's staff, and the defenders pressed back under the weight of his attack. Aaron's heart pounded, but he moved with clarity. He had learned from the battle how the Vorin fought, their patterns, their weaknesses. Each step, each strike, each movement became precise, deliberate, and full of purpose. Myra stayed close, her hands glowing with healing energy, her eyes locked on his. "You're stronger than I imagined," she said softly as they advanced together. Aaron shook his head. "I'm only strong because I'm not alone. We fight together." The Vorin leader roared, swinging his massive blade at the defenders. Aaron lunged forward, blocking a strike that would have hit a young guard. The impact knocked him back, but he steadied himself, gripping his spear tightly. Myra moved behind him, her hands glowing brighter than ever. She released a wave of energy that forced the Vorin to stagger back, stunned for a brief moment. "Now!" Aaron shouted. The defenders surged, pushing the enemy backward toward the shattered terrace. Aaron ran forward, spear in hand, and leapt at the Vorin leader, dodging a heavy swing. He jabbed with precision, aiming for the gaps Myra had pointed out. The alien stumbled, off balance, and the queen raised her staff. A beam of crystal energy shot out, striking the enemy and knocking him to his knees. The battle was not over, but the tide had turned. The Vorin soldiers faltered, seeing their leader falter, and the defenders pressed forward with renewed strength. Aaron and Myra moved as one, her healing energy keeping him steady, his strategy guiding the defense. Finally, the last of the Vorin fled, retreating into their black ships. The city was quiet except for the hum of the crystal towers and the heavy breaths of the defenders. Aaron dropped to his knees, exhausted, sweat streaking his face. Myra knelt beside him, placing her hands on his shoulders. "You did it," she said quietly. "You saved us all." Aaron shook his head. "We did it together. I couldn't have done it alone." Myra smiled, her eyes shining. "Then the bond is true, not because of words, but because of heart. You chose to stand with us, to fight, to protect. That is what binds us." Aaron's chest tightened. He had come to this world by accident, a crash from the sky, and now he understood. The queen, the city, the people, and Myra herself, they had all seen something in him that he had not yet fully believed in. He had survived the battle not just with strength, but with courage and choice. That courage had sealed the bond in a way no word alone could. The queen stepped forward, her robes glowing like flowing light. Her eyes, ancient and wise, rested on Aaron. "Human, you have faced not only danger but your own fears. You have shown wisdom, courage, and loyalty. The bond you share with the healer is no longer question or doubt. It is real, forged through trial and truth." Aaron bowed his head, exhausted but proud. "Thank you, Your Majesty." The queen waved a hand, and the city's towers pulsed brighter, filling the chamber with warm light. "Let it be known across this world, the bond between Myra and Aaron is honored. The human is accepted not as outsider, but as protector and companion." Myra stepped forward, her hands glowing faintly, her voice steady. "Then I call him husband, not because of a word spoken in jest, but because of his heart and deeds. Aaron, will you accept this bond with me?" Aaron took a deep breath. The battle had tested everything: his strength, his mind, his courage. And he had learned something he could not have known before, that bonds formed in trust, in shared struggle, and in choice were stronger than any fear. "I accept," he said, his voice calm, filled with certainty. "I accept not just the bond, but the responsibility. I will stand with you, Myra, and with this people, as long as I live." Myra's eyes shone with warmth. She reached out her hand, and he took it firmly. The glow from her hands spread across them, wrapping them both in light. Around them, the palace shimmered as if the very walls celebrated the union. The defenders and commanders watched in awe. The queen raised her staff, and a wave of crystal light washed over the city, sealing not only the palace but the hearts of all who lived there. Even the twin suns seemed to shine brighter, as if marking the day for the world to remember. Aaron felt Myra's grip tighten slightly. "We are partners now," she whispered. "In danger, in peace, in whatever comes next." Aaron nodded, a smile finally breaking through his exhaustion. Partners. Together. The city beyond the palace walls began to stir with life once more. Citizens came out cautiously at first, then with growing joy as they realized the Voron threat had been repelled. They looked at the palace, at the throne, and at Aaron and Myra standing together, hands clasped. The bond was no longer a question. It was a truth witnessed by all. In the following hours, the Queen addressed the council. "This human has proven himself not only capable but honorable. He will remain here as protector and companion to the healer. Let no one doubt the strength of choice, courage, or heart." Aaron watched as Myra spoke with the Queen and the council, her hands guiding, her words steady. He realized then that he had found not just a friend, not just an ally, but a place where he belonged. That night, in the healer's chamber, Aaron finally allowed himself to rest fully. Myra sat beside him, her presence calm and warm. He looked at her, feeling gratitude, respect, and something deeper. "You saved more than the palace today," he said quietly. "You saved me too, Myra." She placed her hand over his, her eyes soft. "No, Aaron. You saved yourself. I only helped you see it." For the first time since he had fallen from the sky, Aaron felt complete. The bond was no longer a word, a misunderstanding, or a fear. It was choice, trust, and shared strength. And together, they would face whatever the future held. The palace of crystal gleamed under the twin suns. Outside, the city thrived once more. And inside, Aaron and Myra stood hand in hand, united not only by bond but by heart. The sky-fallen human had found his place among the stars. And the stars themselves seemed to shine brighter for it.